All right, welcome. We're on the air. This is Scott Engler. I'm a published author and thought leader on professional branding, LinkedIn, and job search strategies. So today's podcast is going to be based on an article I wrote for recruiter.com, and it's the first of a two-part series. It just felt like a better thing to do to break it up just because there was so much to write on these topics. So this is why you continue to attract the wrong companies, even though you're awesome and have a lot to offer. So before I get into this, I do want to say that I've created more specific needs assessments to really hone in on what the target people that I work with the most, what their most specific challenges are. And that's been a definite refining process. And, you know, it's like anything else, it's a live and ongoing changing thing. So the number one most selected has been this, is that people will be getting interviews, but they are not feeling like they're aligned with the types of opportunities. It just doesn't feel like they're good fits, or they have nothing to do with the job, or they're getting contacted by recruiters about positions that have nothing to do with them and they feel frustrated, or they're dealing with flaking companies. All sorts of ways this manifests itself. So here is what episode 1 is about, or article 1. It's why this is happening, because there is a reason. And again, why this is happening, even though you are awesome and you do have a lot to offer, which could be even more frustrating, right? As if we feel like we have a lot to offer and people just aren't seeing it, right? So if you're listening, just take a deep breath in, breathe it out, relax. Okay, so you are the problem. When I say you are the problem, I don't mean that there's something wrong with you. What I mean is the way that you are communicating and presenting yourself is what the problem is, and that is the common denominator in why you are continuing to attract all these flaky companies and wrong opportunities. I know it's a tough pill to swallow. So let me explain why and how this is happening. And until we obviously have an awareness and acceptance of things, then there's very slim chance of any change happening. So I do spend quite a bit of time on recruiter.com looking at people's resumes. I talk to people all the time. I work with people that are, you know, working with them on their LinkedIn profile or looking at their resume and talking to them about what types of opportunities they want. So here's the thing. I'd say 95% of people that are currently looking for jobs and expressing some type of frustration are putting out resumes and LinkedIn profiles that are confusing, jumbled, convoluted, and just over the top with information that is not congruent. So there are a bunch of reasons why this happens, I believe, but what I personally believe is it all really comes down to fear, right? When we are not getting any opportunities, or when our job security is at jeopardy, we have this ingrained belief that, well, if I just and you are going to end up where you were before, which is at a toxic company or something where, you know, you got yourself stuck in the same situation. So it does seem like the logical approach, and that's why so many people do it. to make yourself seem more available. But here's what happens. I'll give you just a perfect, simple example that I see every single day. Somebody has a resume I'm looking at. They have 20 years of work experience. They've listed 30 different skills that they're good at that could help an organization. They have a 5-page resume at least of 10 different roles they've had, and they have just paragraphs of how they've helped the company and what they've done, and using all this jargon and being very detailed. So what I see when I'm reading this is, oh my gosh, one, this is way too much information. Recruiters are looking at resume, and I'm not a recruiter, just so you know, but I do have access to that database. But the point is 6 seconds at the most, they're looking at your resume. When you're listing 30 skills, just that alone, at the beginning, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, I can't help this person, honestly. And that's how I've spoken with plenty of other recruiters. It's the same thing. It's like you're being way too broad about what you could do and how you could best serve an organization. I don't have the time to really sift through this because I have 300 other applicants that I need to look through to help best place for the job. So that's confusing. You're putting flexibility salary ranges between $50,000 to $290,000. So I have no idea what level of role that you want to be in. And there's no clarity and congruency. And again, I understand why people are doing this, right? Because they're thinking, well, if I just say that I could do everything, then the likelihood I'll get hired somewhere will be not much better because I could do so many different things. If I just put that I could, work for $50,000 or $250,000, then I have a much more likelihood of getting a job, right? No, that's not the way it works, especially not anymore, because there's just the speed at which people are getting information and able to process information is much, much different. Again, they're not going to take the time to really square away like, well, of these 30 skills, after I took another 20 minutes and spent 2 hours talking to them, I really think that they can narrow it down to these 5 skills. No, that's not. You're not going to get that kind of treatment, right? So, unless you're working with me, of course. But anyway, that's because I do have, as a career coach, I could do that. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The point being is that you need to get clear. You need to be clear. You need to speak what you want to do. 5 skills, max. Quantify the results, highlight stuff at the top. Just think about what I tell people when they try to get, when I start spewing off statistics or whatever and talking about these challenges, people typically get really in their, the part of their brain, the logical part. I can't think if it's left or right now. Forgive me. But the part of their brain where they're like, want to know the perfect thing to do every time. What I tell them is there's really no perfect thing to do every time. What is a good rule of thumb is to consider knowing your audience and how much time they're spending looking at your resume. So how could you make it as dynamic, clear, and engaging as possible to make them well aware of what your best skills are, what your best experiences, and what kind of organization and role that would fit in so they could place you. And this is, of course, assuming that you're one of the people that have your LinkedIn profile up, because that's where over 90% of recruiters are. This is assuming that you are, one of the people I speak with all the time on recruiter.com, and you have your resume on some platform like recruiter.com where recruiters are looking at it and not applicant tracking systems, because those are 2 separate beasts. One is for a human, one is for a computer. And anyway, the point being is, how could you be more clear so you could attract more clear results? And it really is, my first book, The Job Interview, I compare job searching to dating. So if you are not clear about what you want when in the dating, especially now there's like online dating, and I use this analogy because it helps people kind of lighten up a little bit, and it makes sense, right? We don't always know exactly, we don't always know what we want, or, nothing's ever 100%. However, if you could be more in one direction, right? I'm looking for a long-term relationship with a woman who is, between these ages and has these characteristics. Here is what my best attributes are, or, a little bit about me. This is what I foresee having in a relationship. If you're clear about what you want, and what you're going towards, you're going to attract more people like that, because you're going to speak to them, right? If you're not clear, you're going to get all sorts of messages from people, and especially this works more on the side of women, right? And they're like, why are all these guys messaging me about things that I don't want with dating? Well, it's because when I've had girls say this, and then I look at their profiles, honestly, it's the same thing. I'm like, you're not being clear about what you're really looking for, and that's why you're getting all these messages. Now, is there still obviously going to be a small percentage that you will get contacted about jobs and, in this case, dating, that don't line up with what you're putting out there? Of course, that's part of life. However, you are much, 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 much more likely to be attracting the type of people and opportunities to yourself, and detracting, if that's even a word, the opportunities and people that aren't aligned with you, when you yourself are being the change that you wish to see in the world, right? Because when you're clear, when you tell us what you want, when you are very specific and keep it simple and communicate in a way that's effective and clear, then you will get that back in return. It's just a law of the universe. My high recommendation for people listening that have been out of even if you haven't been out of it, but especially people that haven't been in the job search game for 10, 15, 20 years, please do yourself a favor. Please spare yourself all the pain and frustration for that much longer, and suffering, right? Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Please find somebody that is experienced in today's contemporary job search to help you. Please do yourself this favor. You are worth it. You are worth investing in. That is my recommendation. You can't fix something that's broken with the mind that got you there in the first place. We all have blind spots. So please have somebody that, not your brother that has no idea what they're doing, for someday in 2 months, for your sister's husbands, boyfriends, sisters, daughters, brother. Find a professional, find someone that's experienced, that knows what they're talking about and doing, to help you in this area. I cannot be more adamant, because I see what I see on my end, and it, like I say in the article, it breaks my heart to see all these people that are so wonderfully qualified, have done so many amazing things in their career. I mean, I'm looking at resumes all the time, all week long, from people that have done just absolutely wonderful things in their career. I mean, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person is wonderful. And then I'll call them. I'm like, hey, have you been getting any, job opportunities? They're like, yeah, I've gotten like one in the last 3 months. And it wasn't even what they wanted to do. So please, please, please do yourself the favor, invest in yourself. I'm going to be coming next week with part 2 of this article, which is the solution to this. Other than what I've already said here, I'm going to get a little bit more into the solution. This was the problem. The problem is you're not being clear. The problem is you're acting out of fear. And so the first step is to notice this. Just be aware of it. Am I really being true to myself? Or is Scott right? Am I really being fearful, fear-based, trying to put that I could be all things to all people, and in return, I'm getting flaky, unaligned opportunities? That's all I got today. Thanks, guys.